All right, today we're going to tackle one of the most famous stories in all of Western literature, the ultimate deal with the devil. We're going to peel back centuries of interpretation to get to the bottom of where the legend of Faust really started. So, when you hear the name Faust, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Probably some tormented genius, right? A tragic hero wrestling with his own ambition. But what if I told you the original story was way simpler and, honestly, a lot more terrifying? And this right here gets to the absolute heart of it. The Faust we think we know is this deep psychological drama, but the original? Nope. It was a straight-up cautionary tale. Think of it more like a horror story with a very, very clear message about good versus evil. To really get it, we've got to go back, way back, all the way to a book published in Germany in 1587, known as the Faustbuch. This is ground zero for the whole legend. Now, this book wasn't trying to be subtle or highbrow literature. It was the original blueprint, and it was designed with one powerful goal in mind for its 16th century readers: moral instruction. And yeah, that goal was crystal clear. It wasn't about exploring the inner demons of its main character or asking complicated questions. It was all about delivering a direct, powerful, and frankly, terrifying lesson. Don't mess with the devil. The world of the Faust book was incredibly direct. There were no shades of gray here, you know? The whole thing was painted in the starkest black and white. And this is a really key point. In this story, Faust wasn't wrestling with some metaphorical darkness inside himself. He was literally facing off against a real, external, physical force of evil. You can actually see this in the old illustrations from the time. They show the devil as this massive, horned, winged monster that is physically towering over Faust in his study. This was not a psychological concept. It was a tangible, terrifying threat. So the message couldn't be any simpler. If you abandon your faith and morality for worldly power and forbidden knowledge, you will face eternal damnation. That's it. End of story. But like all great stories, this one didn't stay simple for long. As the centuries rolled by, the story of Faust started to change in a big way. The character's motivation, the whole reason he makes the pact, gets a complete makeover. So you go from this very straightforward warning against sinful ambition to something way more complex. In later versions, especially Goethe's famous play, Faust's motivation is totally reframed. He isn't just greedy anymore. He's got this profound dissatisfaction with the very limits of being human. This later Faust isn't just seeking power for the sake of it. He's on a lifelong quest, this relentless striving to feel and know and experience everything that life has to offer, moving way beyond just dusty old books. And this pursuit takes him down a whole new path. First, he totally ditches his scholarship for real, visceral life experience. Then, he turns to alchemy and magic, not just for power, but as a way to engage more deeply with the world. And through it all, he's chasing this one perfect moment of satisfaction that he thinks is probably impossible to ever find. Now, this massive shift in Faust's character, it also brought in a new and frankly devastating element to the story: the collateral damage, the suffering of the innocent people who get caught in his ambitious path. And there is no more powerful or more heartbreaking example of this than the tragic story of Gretchen. She is this young, innocent woman whose entire life is just utterly destroyed by her connection to Faust and his selfish quest. I mean, her story is just an absolutely brutal chain of events. She's seduced, becomes pregnant, and is then ostracized by her entire community. In complete and utter despair, she kills her own child. She's imprisoned, condemned to die, and goes mad. It's a horrific showcase of the cruelty that comes from Faust's striving. And yet, in the end, she's the one who finds redemption by accepting her fate. So with all these complex new layers of tragedy and ambition, why should we even care about that simple old cautionary tale from 1587? Because that original Faust book, it's the critical baseline for everything that comes after. You just can't really understand the complex Faust without first understanding the simple one. And here's the crucial takeaway. Every single retelling, from Christopher Marlowe's play to Goethe's epic to modern movies, is in a conversation with that first starkly moral story. Understanding the original unlocks a much, much deeper appreciation for all the versions that came later. And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. The themes of ambition, consequence, knowledge, and temptation,
They are so powerful, so fundamentally human, that every single era feels compelled to remake the story of Faust in its own image, which kind of makes you wonder, what does our version say about us?